Tennessee This Week from WATE's 6 on Your Side starts now.
Hello and welcome to Tennessee This Week. Good to be with you. I'm Don Hudson. There is no shortage of topics to dive into this week, with President Trump continuing just a flurry of actions in Washington. At last report, 49 executive orders. I'm sure it's more than that by the time that we get on the air here, some of which could actually impact East Tennessee and the state of Tennessee. And join us now to talk about some of these big headlines out of Washington, former U.S. Ambassador to Poland, also former Knoxville Mayor, Victor Ashe. Thank you so much for coming in. There's, again, plenty to dive into here.
No doubt we don't have enough time, Don, to deal with them all.
Let's get really focused on the tariffs, or the announced tariffs with Canada and Mexico, just those. And I know President Trump made mention of it's not a tariff war, this is a drug war, and he did get them to take some action. How do you see this playing out, and could that impact Tennessee with all our manufacturing plants?
Well, certainly it could impact Tennessee, certainly if tariffs were actually implemented. Right. Canada and Mexico operate differently. Canada got the 30-day pause about half a day before Prime Minister Trudeau basically did it for Canada. But actually what they offered, they had discussed privately beforehand. Right. It wasn't necessary to have all this hullabaloo. And who knows, at the end of 30 days, which is about 3 weeks from now, will this resume, or will it quietly go away, or what? Because, President Trump clearly has a shall we say, a very aggressive way of handling things. Right. and bringing up issues that are not really that related to the issue he may want to deal with. And the import of drugs from Canada is very small. Right. Not to say any of it is appropriate, it's not. Whereas Mexico is different. But President Mexico has placed 10,000 Mexican troops. We'll see what that stops. Actually, the number of illegal immigrants has already gone down. We're now flying them back to many countries. Actually, when you use U.S. military jets, it's far more expensive per hour in fuel than it is if you put a chartered a commercial flight. Right. I mean, much more expensive. Reopening Guantanamo, if that's what happens, is going to be incredibly expensive. And at a time when Elon Musk is saying we're going to close all these areas to save dollars, is it just going to be transferred to?
There certainly is that issue. But staying on the tariffs, what about China? Because that's a whole different thing. They're not on our north. They're not on our south border. Where is that? How do you see that playing out?
Secondly, the tariffs in China are roughly 10%, not 25%. Right. So it's a milder tariff. Right. You never know what will happen, but I mean, the Chinese are certainly observing what is going on, and you wonder if the Postal Service for about a day and a half was refusing to take packages out of Hong Kong.
That didn't last very long.
That didn't last long, and there are a number of these things that start out, and then a day later they disappear. And it's, why did we get into such a tizzy and leave such hard feelings on the floor when nothing came of it?
Now, right now, things are as they were as far as imports with Mexico and Canada. We have, car manufacturing going on here. We're getting parts from those places. Is this eventually going to become an issue?
I think if it became an issue, it only become an issue is if they're implemented and American jobs are impacted. People buying cars are paying hundreds of dollars more. People buying groceries are finding they're either not available or the price has gone up considerably. And that's when the base will be contacting members of Congress, and the Republican members who've been very supportive of Trump to date may have second thoughts that their constituents are causing, particularly ones who may have voted for President Trump over Kamala Harris.
Let's jump to Panama Canal. I mean, it was once something that, we were responsible for building it, handed it over, but we were in charge of it. President Trump's talked a lot about it. How do you see that playing out? Is this one of those things where eventually we get control, or is it just he wanted to?
First of all, the old phrase, be careful what you ask for, we shouldn't want control of it. Why? Because you'd have to put 50,000 American troops into Panama to guard it. Are we prepared to do that? And, since Howard Baker and Jimmy Carter, in a very bipartisan move, basically arranged the transfer, there really haven't been any major issues in the operation of Panama Canal. The real issue to date is there are two Chinese companies that they're not running the canal, they're not Chinese soldiers, but They're involved in the entry on both sides of the Pacific and the Gulf. And I think the goal is to get the Chinese ownership out and a non-Chinese ownership in. Well, that could easily be handled privately and just worked out and not make it such a public event. You know, they said, announced that Panama was going to let American military ships, naval ships, go through free of charge. Well, that took about 3 hours for the president of Panama to say no. He never agreed to that. They charge everyone the same rate based on weight and that sort of thing. You know, this simply hadn't been an issue since Jimmy Carter left office in 1980. In fact, it's interesting. President Reagan ran against the Panama Canal Treaty. He said, we built it, we own it, we should keep it. Once he became president, you never heard another word from President Reagan about the Panama Canal. And guess who he made his chief of staff? Howard Baker, who provided the deciding votes in the Senate to help President Carter pass the canal treaty. And it's a treaty. And I think, and if we proceed on this, it'll only create huge waves of discontent and antagonism throughout Latin America and South America towards the United States. And how does that benefit us?
Right. Now, of all those things that we just mentioned, the president alluded to them in some way, almost when he was running for office. But one thing he did not really talk about, and that's really gotten a lot of attention, is when he talked about Gaza and America getting way more involved in that. And I'm curious, is that just talk, or is there any way that something like that could happen?
Well, you never know with President Trump. I don't remember him really talking about Panama. I do remember Mexico and Canada. In terms of Gaza, you know, first of all, is the Gaza area we're going to take ownership of it? And he used the phrase, it could be the Riviera of the Middle East. Really? How much is that going to cost? How many billions, if not trillions? And
do you think that, because he said, he goes, he's not going to pay for this. He's trying to, do you think he's just trying to get those countries around to say, hey, something different has to happen?
Somebody's going to pay for it, if in fact it happened. He said Mexico would pay for the wall on the border with the U.S. They haven't paid a dime on the wall. I mean, some of this is just pure talk. And I mean,
well, let's go this way. What needs to change? Because we keep doing the same thing in Gaza, and we keep getting the same issues. Is it under his presidency that maybe other countries get involved and make some changes that stop that fighting once and for all? Or?
I mean, they're going to have to get involved some way. But, you know, Jordan and Egypt are not going to take 1 million people each. I mean, Egypt, 20% of the country of Egypt is in total abyss poverty. They don't have the ability to deal with it. You go to Cairo, 20 million people, 4 million are living in slums. And they're going to take another 1 million or 1.5 million Palestinians or whoever it might be, and where would they put them?
Right. Well, that's always the issue when you take people in. I'm curious, with this DOGE and the Department of Government Efficiency, the Secretary of State is Mark Rubio. So he's in charge of humanitarian causes. He's in charge of USAID. Washington Times and also the House Foreign Affairs Committee Chairman Brian Mast released this long list of expenditures uncovering nearly $200 million in what they call questionable USAID spending, from terrorist-linked food programs to other issues. They said $10 million went to meals that eventually went to Al-Qaeda. $75 million went to diversity and inclusion programs worldwide. Iraq, $20 million for a Sesame Street type show. News access, and this is the one I really, $8 million for political subscriptions and $2 million to the BBC for media ecosystems. I'm just curious, as you hear these things.
First of all, I think USAID does have very questionable expenditures, many of which should be stopped or never should have been started. And that can be handled. I mean, you just end it. Does that mean you abolish the entire agency and some of the humanitarian aid, some of which is going to Gaza, by the way, right now? And if any area needs aid, it would overseas, Gaza would be it. But you know, we have problems in Southern California with the forest fires, and here in East Tennessee, in Unicoi, Cobb County, Greene County, Western North Carolina. I mean, are these countries like Gaza going to come ahead of our own domestic issues? I would hope not. And I think, but USIA clearly needs reform. Does it need abolition and then rebuild? I'm not sure that's the answer, but you know, I have great confidence in Secretary Rubio,
right.
if he's given the ability to undertake changes, or does he have to share it with Elon Musk, who's an unelected billionaire who doesn't have a whole lot of understanding of people who are not as well-to-do as he is.
Right. But just real quickly, and we only have 30 seconds or so left, this is what they're calling an audit. They say every department should be audited. Do you see it that way? Or
well,
maybe in a different way?
There's certainly nothing wrong in having an audit. Right. I mean, that was one of the issues with the Defense Department.
Right, the Pentagon,
and they have a fair amount of waste. On the other hand, no one's suggesting the Defense Department, the Army, Navy, and Air Force be abolished.
Right.
And but on the other hand, there's need for reform and making sure that money is appropriately spent. And that should be true in any part of government and any level of government, whether it's the city of Knoxville, Knox County, state of Tennessee.
Well, Victor, we are out of time. I think we might have got to 10% of what I wanted to talk about. But we do appreciate you coming in.
Great to be here, and appreciate you inviting me.
And thank you for your insights. Our panel of pundits weigh in next. We're back in just a few minutes. Stay with us. Welcome back to Tennessee This Week. A moment ago, we heard from former U.S. Ambassador to Poland and former Knoxville Mayor Victor Ashe on a range of issues, and we just scratched the surface on what we wanted to talk to. So now let's bring our panel of pundits in to discuss what he had to say and what they have to say about some of those same issues. Our WATE political commentators, of course, Courtney Piper, Craig Griffith, Michael Covington. Thank you all for being here. I know you had to follow Victor, so, you know, it's a tough act to follow.
It is.
And we're going to get into that, but real quickly, a little issue that has come up between Knoxville and Nashville and the state capitol. I guess the school board chair, right, went to Nashville and spoke in favor of school vouchers, and yet she said she wasn't there as a school board member doing it. This has led to kind of a dust-up. So we'll start with you, Courtney, your take on this.
This was a very curious decision for the school board chair to make. The school board voted not to take a stand on vouchers. We had our school board chair go to Nashville and testify in front of the state Senate in favor of vouchers. You know, in her defense, she said, I was very clear, I was not there in my role as school board chair, I was there as a private citizen, but private citizens don't get seats at the table to testify in front of the state Senate, and Governor Lee identified her as a member of, or the chair of the Knox County School Board. So I'm trying to figure out, you know, what was the political calculation there, because I'm wondering if the blowback that she has received was worth the testimony. At school board meeting last week, there were calls for her to step down as chair. She felt compelled to issue a response to that via Facebook. We all know she's rumored to run for county mayor. So was this a calculation of trying to get her name out there? Was it the right thing to do to get your name out there in the right way? We don't know. But for me, it was just a very curious decision, because had she not gone to Nashville, then she wouldn't have to deal with any of this. So I'm trying to figure out how that decision was made.
Michael, your take.
Well, Betsy Henderson is the chair of the school board. As chair, she has certain responsibilities, and there are certain things that she can do as chair. But you must do those things as chair. So when she took her seat in Nashville, she had to either take her seat as the school board chair or as a private citizen who would be there even if she wasn't the school board chair, and she likely wouldn't have been. So it wasn't particularly good form. I think she had a definite objective in doing it, and I think she accomplished it.
Correct.
You really can't separate if you're chair of the school board, you really can't separate that now from your private persona. So I think, you know, you can't. It's very callous, I think, for her to say, I'm up there with the governor, but I'm not up there as a school board chair. I'm up there as just a Jane citizen. Those two cannot be separated for a while you're chair of the board. And so I think that a lot of it does have to do with local politics. I think that she was trying to really beef up her conservative credentials with the local conservatives in Knox County, and this was the way that she did it. She is not well known throughout the county. But, you know, what are we talking about right now? We're talking about Betsy Henderson and you know, potentially a run for mayor in a couple of years. So, I think that, she could have done something and say that the Knox County School Board does not support this, or hasn't taken a position. In the past, they have not voted against, they have voted against vouchers, but the latest vote was we're not going to take a stance on it. So I think that she could have said that.
Right.
But that would not have accomplished what Governor Lee had her at that dais for.
All right, moving on to that, some of Victor Ashe's comments. He talked about tariffs with Canada and Mexico, specifically a lot on that. Where's your take on that? We'll start down there, Michael, with you. The way, I mean, I'm looking at this, is the commentary about tariffs, do you see this as something that, yeah, we're going to do these tariffs no matter what, or was this just a play by President Trump, I should say?
I think this has been a ploy. Pretty much. I don't think that these tariffs are going to go forward. I don't think any country is going to operate against their own interests. Saber rattling, just woofing, it works in some instances. If you're able to carry it out, Donald Trump is able to carry it out. So it's a game Donald Trump can play and win. Others could not.
Do you see an impact with this, Courtney? I mean, let me rephrase that. A negative impact on any of the manufacturing here that this could end up costing more for parts and things like that?
Sure. In addition to really ticking off our allies and people that we rely on to support our economy and American jobs, yeah, I see a lot of bad things that can happen with this. One, why tick off your allies, your closest allies and your trading partners? That can also affect the ability of companies to retain a workforce. So, he can use this as a PR stunt, but at some point it's going to stop, and it's going to have real effects and real impacts for people that are in factories every single day producing things that Americans need.
And Craig, last word on this.
Well, it's the way Donald Trump governs.
Right.
So, good or bad, it's what we have for the next 4 years. And of course, tariffs are going to affect us all, and they aren't really tariffs, they're taxes. They're taxes on goods that you and I want to buy most every day. So if they're actually increased, then we will pay more in taxes every year because we'll have to pay the tariffs. So, and whether they achieve the goals that he stated for them, help with stopping the flow of illegal immigrants and help with the flow of fentanyl, I don't know what they're looking at in terms of fentanyl. Fentanyl is not coming on into the United States in the backpack of illegal immigrants crossing the Rio Grande. They're coming in cars and trucks through legal points of entry, and they don't get searched. And so it's actually more Americans are probably bringing in fentanyl than illegal aliens. So I don't know that we're addressing the real problem that we have in terms of importing of fentanyl. It's a terrible drug. We need to do it, and we need to spend more time, I think, on treatment centers and on drug education versus trying to put tariffs on these things.
We all know by now about USAID. Is this something that everyone, and let me rephrase this properly, that every department should expect that they're going to get audited with this new president and the people that he has? And then, does that mean that this is not so much what's happening, but how it's happening?
Well, here's the problem. Departments aren't actually formally getting audited. It's audit by executive order. So the proper process would be, if you wanted to find government efficiencies, you would ask, I think it's OMB or an inspector general to audit that department and produce a report. The president would then look at that report, go to Congress and say, hey, the next time you're funding this agency, I want you to take out X, Y, and Z. And that's not what is happening.
Right. And a lot of that, well, like for the Pentagon, they use that example, say, well, it's failed audits for 7 years. We got to do something different about it. But sadly, I'm being told that we're out of time for this segment, so we need to take a break. So coming up on Tennessee this week, a flagpole fight. A business CEO refusing to take down a flagpole that is higher than the height ordinance will allow in the city. And now the city is responding. We'll talk about that coming up next. Welcome back to Tennessee this week. On Thursday, the city of Sevierville out with some fiery comments after an area business refused to take down a flagpole that exceeds the height limit for that area. Now, the city sent a 30-day notice to Camping World to take the flagpole down. that notice saying the city will seek legal action or issue citations until Camping World complies. However, the CEO of Camping World, Marcus Lemonis, is not backing down, saying that the large flag that flies on it is a sign of respect. But now the city is saying it's not against expressing patriotism, because this is an American flag, as you can see. They're just saying this is basically a big publicity stunt, and they want them to deal with it. So here we are. Local company, guys providing jobs, providing a service, puts a flag up, and the city is saying, wait, this is way too high. Now, I will put this out. He says, and I don't know if it's true, he said that he checked with the FAA, and this is not an issue for us. So the fight is on. Greg?
Well, he knew that he was in violation when he built the flag pole. So, I mean, why not build the flagpole smaller but have the same size flag? You know, it's not a limitation on the size of the flag. It's a limitation on. This comes a little bit personal to me because when I was working in the Victor Ashe administration, businesses on Gay Street wanted to have outdoor patio seating. And if you go down, Gay Street on a nice Friday evening now, there's, hundreds of people sitting out in the patios out there enjoying, especially in springtime. But, when they first wanted to do that a number of years ago, it was against the city code. You could not have outdoor patio seating on that sidewalk. A law that was passed many years ago. So, we had to work with the business owners and get some action by city council to allow that to happen. And I think that's what this person needs to do. He needs to work with the local elected officials, the council and the county commission. And if you want a bigger flagpole, then change the laws so that you can have a bigger flagpole. So, except he's taking a more belligerent, apparently insulting the peons that work in the zoning department about, this is illegal. So, we'll have to see if he continues to take the hard line or whether he does what he needs to do and goes to his elected officials and has the law changed.
And I'm going to say, you're the one using that word about them, not any of us. So just in case that comes back, Courtney.
It appears to me that Camping World has run out of money in their advertising budget, so they decided to do this stunt, and we're playing right into it because we're talking about it all the time. Camping World was extraordinarily well aware of the ordinance. They chose to break it, and now they're using it as a way to publicize and give them and promote themselves in the business, which I find to be abhorrent and just very disrespectful for the ordinances that govern the city in which you have your business. So perhaps they should put more money in their advertising budget if they want to get Camping World's name out there, but they shouldn't leverage and manipulate the ordinances of the city that they have their business to get that promotion.
Michael, here.
The CEO of this company has 3 objectives. First, he wants to make certain he's going to violate the rule, and he went way past the rule. He's willing to pay the fine. As Courtney said, he wants to take the advertising benefit. I get all that. The city of Sevierville should play along. Okay, you want to pay the fine. $1,000 a day for 30 days. Each day you don't make the payment, we padlock your building. After 30 days, the 31st day, we go to $10,000 a day. Let's see how long you want to play this game and make him go away.
I'm going to guess that's not where the fine sits right now, which would require
a special session, a special meeting, certainly. But have that meeting. Advertise it in the newspaper.
It would be the maximum.
Yeah, $50 a day.
Which is a lot cheaper than advertising.
Right,
so.
and there's a lot of people, when we did the story, that say, hey, we like that flag. And my understanding is he has a place, I want to say North Carolina, that same issue. So this is not a new issue for Camping World.
So this was a calculation by the CEO to get publicity for pulling this stunt. We should not continue to discuss it.
Well, we should put the same size flag on a smaller
we should make it hurt. If we're going to allow him to get a benefit, we should make it hurt. There should be a penalty, and if we need to go to the state and get a special allowance so that we can penalize him for what he's doing, we should do that.
Right.
That's the game he wants to play.
Do you think there's concern from, say, city council members to say, and this is the last thing we can say, maybe that's not going to look so good when they run again, that they wanted a guy to tear down the American flag?
That they wanted a guy to follow the ordinances that they all agreed to?
Right.
Tear down a
It can
flag
also be
pole.
worded. Yeah, it can
No,
also
keep
be
in
worded.
mind, this went in front of a citizen board to get a variance, and that board denied the variance.
Right. I wonder if the political opponent would say it that way on their commercial. Hey,
Right.
we are out of time. Thank you for watching Tennessee This Week. Thank you to our pundits for being here, as well as Victor Ashe. We'll see you next week.
The views of guests on Tennessee This Week are their own and do not represent the views of WATE 6 on your side or Nexstar Broadcasting.